I'm JD. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe. Please hit like. Long form videos are watchmaking and the shorts are comedy. But today I got to put my watchmaking glasses on because I can't see a damn thing without them. So anyway, this is the area loop, by the way. I've advertised it a few times. It's the highest recommended loop. Not cheap, but very good. So what we're going to do today is we're going to be reassembling an Elgin pocket watch movement, and this Elgin pocket watch movement is mine, so I own this. So I may have a severe lack of finger cots. So no, I'll put some on later on, but here I've put this watch movement through the cleaning machine. I have a Pearl cleaning machine. It's it's pretty good. It's the highest end one that they sell, and it's made in India. And the only thing you really need to do to make this thing work is change the plug on the end. And you can download the standards for plugs and look at what wires fit what wires when you convert it over. So that's what I would recommend, is download that standard. Let me see if I got my tweezers here. These are the right tweezers. So the first thing I do when I reassemble a pocket watch is I take all the pieces out of the cleaning basket. I got to remember to not touch anything until I have my finger cots on. But I have a bunch of stuff in these cleaning baskets that needs to be removed. I made a video previously where it was jittery, and I apologize for that, but it was something to do with my OBS software, and I'm not sure what. So if you've got any comments or recommendations, what I did is I took the actual OBS software recording quality, I took it down just a notch so that it wouldn't jitter. But I'll test it, I'll stop it, and I'll test the videos as I go along, so I don't end up at the end of the day with the same problem. So I always tap the basket upside down after, just to make sure there isn't anything left over. And as you can see just below me here, I'm grouping the screws. Hopefully there's no major reflection off my head here. I do recommend getting a cleaning machine. It's going to do a much better job than you can do, although for years I cleaned watches simply using lighter fluid. Here I'll just dump the basket and tap it. I cleaned watches using lighter fluid, and it worked quite well. And these are vintage pocket watches I was cleaning using lighter fluid, not watches, although I think I did a Rolex with lighter fluid, so apologize for that, but it turned out extremely well. And this is somebody that asked me if I could clean or repair their Rolex watch. It was going to cost them, Rolex was going to charge them a fortune to actually just bring that in and clean it. And it was a Rolex Summit Expedition, and it was a Rolex that was made to commemorate the climbing of Mount Everest by Sir Edmund Hillary. I doubt if he's the first guy that ever climbed Mount Everest, because these guys had their guides with them, and those guides went up and down that mountain every day just for fun. But they got this British dude who's like, "Look at me, I just climbed Mount Everest," and the guides are like, "Yeah, right. We've been going up and down this mountain for hundreds of years and never got a recognition or an award for it." So I think there's mules that have gone up and down Mount Everest. I'm just kidding. It's not possible. Here I've got the escapement wheel, and the escapement wheel by itself, got to make sure that I always put that on its own when I put it in the cleaning machine, so I have no issues with that at all. And then I've got some other wheels here, and I usually dump those. That way, when you dump them, you don't have to, if you pick them up with your tweezers, there's a chance you might slip and catch the actual wheel in the cage, so you don't want to do that. Now, I had coffee with a friend of mine who's probably listening right now, and he and I had chatted about lectures, watchmaking lectures, and we thought that actually a lecture on getting beat error correct would be a great lecture, because adjusting beat error is not an easy thing on a pocket watch. On watches, it's no problem because they have a beat error. There's a tab on the regulator system that allows you to adjust beat error without a problem. This mainspring is going to be a bit of a pain. I've got to wrap that into the barrel, and I'm going to have to do it by hand, and to do it by hand I cannot put gloves on to do that. I've tried, it just doesn't work. So that's going to be a bit of a pain. But we're going to do it anyway, and to get that mainspring back in place. The other thing I need to still do is clean the balance and oil the upper and lower. What do I got here? Is that good? Yeah. Oil the upper and lower jewels for this watch. One thing I did not do here is I didn't take this gear off. I just oil it the way it is. So I'm going to have to oil it from down here, from below. I didn't want to take this off because it's friction fit. I was a bit concerned about not being able to punch that back on again. If you have a Rolex, however, and you have one of the wheels that are above the plate, there is a tool you can procure to actually I got to get a glove on here. There's a tool you can procure to take that wheel off if you've got a Rolex. So let me see if this video actually worked. So being of sound mind and soul and a good boy, I decided to put a glove on. So I did put the glove on. I only put them on one hand usually because I'm using the tweezers on the other hand, and I don't like finger cuts because they cut my circulation off, so I have a full glove here that I use. And these are pretty good gloves. So the only thing I didn't take apart here was this, because there's a spring in there that's right there that I was a bit concerned with. And the spring is kind of hooked onto a screw here that allows it to go back and forth. There's also a shaft or a pipe that comes up from this watch and goes into this plate here, I believe. So, but I'm going to get my, let me dump this and make sure we're good. And so we are, so I can actually put these back together. Let me dump this one here again. And it's good. And I can put these back into the holding cage for this, for the next cleaning. There we go. Fit that in. Live movement of cameras. Talk about your production quality, eh? It's like those movies they started making in the 90s where they were holding the cameras. I hated those. And I think The Office, the show The Office, had that, and it just bugs the crap out of me. It's poor production. They did it for about 5 years thinking that it would catch on, everybody would love it because it was more action oriented, but it was the shits. So nobody really liked it, I don't think. It's like on your TV. I've got a Samsung, I got a couple actually, but I got Samsung television, and they've got what you call theater mode. And on those televisions, theater mode makes everything look like it's plastic. So you're watching something, it's like you're watching a play. So if you've got a new TV, it's automatically set to that, and what it does is it does the math to assume what the next frame is going to be, and it fills it in. So it makes everything more smooth, but that more smooth feeling makes it feel like you're watching a play as opposed to watching a movie. It's a very annoying thing. So you can go into your TV and set that down to almost nothing, and it takes away from that theater mode feeling. Anyway, I need to get my Myers number 58 movement holder to hold this watch movement. So this is my number 58 movement holder, and it has the main movement holder here, and then it has a bunch of different attachments or sizes for different movements to hold. It's called your third hand. So yeah, it's actually called your third hand. So we'll hold watches regardless of size, shape, or form. This is no BS, folks. This is the best movement holder in the market. It's an old design. I'm not sure if you can, they don't make these anymore, and it's a shame they don't, because they're a brilliant design. And I think what's brilliant about them is when you put the plate in, this little angle right here, this little kind of a, looks like around 70 degrees, about 70-degree angle here. It ensures that your plate is stabilized. So when you put your plate in like this, you press the button on the side to crimp it in, and then this is totally in that, it grabs that. When you turn this screw here, it tightens because this is spring loaded. As you can see, I pull on that a bit, you can see it moving. This is spring loaded, so it's actually tightening the spring, and then the spring is grabbing the movement. Now if you tighten it too much, it will tighten the movement, so you don't really need to tighten it that much for the spring to grab it properly, right? So, and then they have a button on the side so you can do a quick adjust. You can push it like that, but you're just going to wear out the threads on the screw, so I just do it like that, and I usually line it up appropriately depending on where I am and actually repairing this watch. So I'm going to go look at my photos, so when I put this watch back together I have no issue with respect to the position of anything. I'm also going to make sure that that I run the train on this, so I'm not going to put the pallet fork in first. I'll put that in at the end so I can run the full train and make sure that the train is running smoothly as well. And I do have to oil the watch as well. What else is there here? There's there's a pipe that comes up. Now I'm not sure where this thing is, but there's a pipe that comes up through this that presses on another part of the watch here. I'm going to have to find that pipe. It might be in in the container here. So let me see. I do have this spring here that grabs that gear on the top and lifts it up. I have this, and here is its screw is right there. Try to keep them together. There's the pallet fork here, and then I'll put that over by the bridge for the pallet fork, and then the screw for that. Go down here a bit. There's a very small screw here that I don't know where it comes from, and I think it was from a different movement, so I'm going to put this movement together without farting around with that screw. So there's that, and then there's a screw here which I believe is a case screw that just was part of the watch. I'm going to leave that in there, and if I look under here, I have this little piece of metal here, and this was leftovers from me trying to repair a different watch, and I never took it out of this. So, and the same as this here big gigantic piece of brass. There was no reason for that being in there. So that's the face. This is the winding part. So what I'm missing here is that lever that goes up. This might be it right here, actually. I'm not completely sure. Let me look here. Yeah, that's got to be the lever right there. Yeah. So that lever pushes up, and then it pushes this spring up to actually make that wheel go up and marry with the center wheel, and that allows it to that basically allows the center wheel to stay in contact with the actual winding mechanism. So I do need to put a little tiny bit of oil in here so it does move freely. Just get some oil here, and I'll use the for that kind of thing. The oil I use is let me grab my oils here. Some of my oils. I don't use a D5, that's too much, right? So I use a 91 So when I use an HP 1300 or a 9104 oil, Mobius 9104 oil, which is a great oil for that. I got my little stupid curtain in the way here. I don't know why. I don't trust myself. So I use that, and I always make sure that I clean off my oilers before I oil. Yeah, and then I just want to put a dab of oil on the side of this here, and that oil will go into the hole, and then I'll have a little better control of that coming up and down, right? There we go. It's fairly loose right now. And now I want to reassemble the mainspring, and I want to put the gears in and all of that nonsense. So let's get the mainspring back together. Now I'm going to do this by hand, and I'll show you me doing it by hand, but I can't do it with a glove on. And if anybody out there thinks they're successful putting a mainspring back in a barrel with a glove on, I'd love to know. It's tricky as hell. I do have mainspring winders for mainsprings, but I find for these things here, when you let them go, they kind of fly off. This barrel has a small tab in it, as you can see right there. So that's the tab, and it marries up with the hole in the mainspring right there. So these two become friends, the hole right there. So my fingernails are long, by the way, because I play guitar. And that's why. This fingernail is long because I didn't cut it. I need to cut this fingernail. So I want to put this mainspring back in the barrel. So I'm just going to line up my camera here a bit and point it at myself. And there we go. What I'm wearing, the watch I'm wearing is a San Martin, and it's a Rolex BB, what is it, a 56, 58, BB 58? Anyway, it's a makeup. The Chinese basically created this watch, and it's like they make, I'll show it to you for a second here. They make exceptional watches at San Martin. So if San Martin's listening to my video now, I do reviews of their watches for them, but they make exceptional watches. There's a few fingerprints on this one here. Get rid of that fingerprints a little bit. So that's it there. Ceramic bezel, 120 click, and I think this has a very high beat movement in it. So I can't remember what movement it is, but as you can see, it's kind of Rolex-y. It's like the Tudor Black Bay. So it's got the Rolex case back opener you need for that, which I have. It's a very beautiful watch, and they've got the San Martin logo on the crown here, and these are all solid links in the back. And I love these little studs that they added to it. So they added studs on it, and then the back ones here are actually screws, these ones here, for sizing the watch properly. And it's got a machined clasp. I've had this watch for quite a while, but this is a beautiful machined clasp. This one's kind of simple. You don't have the one that hangs over. You just do that, and you're in, and you press these buttons here on the side, and that opens it up. This watch probably needs to go, the strap I think needs to go into my ultrasonic cleaner, but you just do this, and then bam, it's in. San Martin logo here. A few scratches here that I need to get rid of, but this is my San Martin BB, what is it, 53, BB something, anyway, BB King. Anyway, I love this watch. It's beautiful, beautiful watch. I can't remember what it cost me, but it didn't cost me the same as it would cost you a Rolex. So one thing I noticed with this spring is that the bottom tab, if you look at, there's an upper and a bottom, two tabs here that would align with the top one aligns with the cover. The bottom one has to be flat because there's no tab hole in the barrel for this to get into. So when I put this in, I have to line up the inside tab with this like that, and make sure that that's in nice and tight. And I usually do that. I'll do that by pressing down on it like this, and then holding it with the other hand like this, and then pushing this in like that. And I'll look and see if that's aligned still, and it is. And then you have to jump that, you have to do that first jump of the spring around the corner, and then use your other finger to move that around like that. And then once you get a couple of circles wound around this, it gets a hell of a lot easier. And you do this and you keep going. Now I do have, like I said, I'll show you these spring winders, but I do have a number of spring winders that they could work, but the problem is when you with these tabs, when you go to line it up, the barrel always jumps a bit, and when it jumps outside the tab, and when it jumps outside the tab, you no longer have control of where the hole is lined up with the tab on the inside of that barrel. Once that's not aligned, you're kind of screwed. You actually have to take the spring out again and try again. And I've had the situations where I've tried multiple times to get the spring into the barrel, and unsuccessfully, and just gave up after a while. So there we go. So their spring is, the mainspring is now in the barrel, and the next thing I check is to make sure that the mainspring riding here is lower than the lip that the this is the lip that the barrel cap rides on. So there's a little lip on the top there, as you can see that. And as long as that mainspring is lower than that lip, I'm not going to have a problem putting the cap back on. So, and I'll just put my area loop down a bit. I'll just have a little look at that. Now, if it is up higher at all, I just take a stake from my staking set, and I'll take a flat stake and put the flat stake right on the edge of the mainspring. So, but not around that rim, and I'll tap that ever so slightly to tap that down, and that way I know it's perfect. The other thing I have to do now is to make sure I've got the arbor is on the right side when I put the arbor back in, and make sure it's oiled properly. I took a picture of the mainspring when I disassembled it, and there it is there, and there is the mainspring arbor, so I know which side is up and which side is down. So this mainspring arbor would sit like this, and you can also tell from the direction of the mainspring. I should have actually checked the direction of the mainspring before I put it back in the barrel, but turns out I did put it in the right direction. Thank goodness. So let's get on with completing the mainspring. I'm going to put a little bit of what I call HP 1300 oil on the inside of this mainspring barrel, right where the barrel meets with the arbor, and that'll help it rotate, because there'll be a bit of friction there, like that. And now I want to put the arbor in place, and look where the hook is. The hook on this arbor is extremely small, if I recall. Yeah, it's a little tiny indent right there. So this is going to be tough to put in. I think it is anyway. Hard to say. So I kind of look where the gap is in the mainspring and look where the hook is, and try to line the two up so it's a little bit easier. The other thing you can do is you can take the arbor, and you can get a pin vise, and you can put the arbor inside of a pin vise. Once you have it kind of in the center like that, you can kind of roll it to get it in. That sometimes works. I'm doing it right now. Kind of roll it to get it into position. And once you get it to a certain point, then you should use a screwdriver just to move the mainspring up a bit. So if you can put the screwdriver, very small screwdriver, I may have to get a little bit closer here, but you can put a very small screwdriver right here on the spring edge, and that might widen. That'll widen the spring to allow that very small hook to get in. I'm going to go through the hole this time instead. See if that does it for me. Fun with mainsprings. It's like Sheldon on The Big Bang Theory with fun with flags. This is the same sort of thing. I got to get down a little bit dirtier. All right, so I'm pretty close right now, as you can see, and I got my area loop on here. I'm just trying to get that screwdriver in there to help me move that mainspring up. Just up just a bit to get the tab down. So now I've got the tab is clearing the mainspring. I just have to make sure the bottom of the mainspring now is lined up with the hole, and that's done. So I did that. And that mainspring is now, or the arbor is now in place. As you can see, there it is there, and that tab is hooked in there, so that should be good. And now I just need to put the cap in, but I want to put the mainspring down and not push the arbor back out. So you get yourself a block. This is a block, and you just put the block down like that, or put the mainspring barrel down like this, and the arbor pivot is now going through there. So the other thing I want to do is, if you look at the cap, you'll notice that there's part of that cap will be touching the arbor. So you get two choices. You can actually oil the arbor, or you can oil the cap. I think I'll oil the cap because it'll be a little bit easier for me to get access to that, as opposed to trying to get inside there with the arbor. And again, I'm using the HP 1300 to do this oiling, and I'm going to get in a little bit closer to do that. And I'll just put a bit of oil in 4 spots and leave it like that. And now when I just have to align this gap. There's a gap on the edge of the cap gap. I line that up with the actual mainspring, which also has it's part of a normal T in a mainspring, but I'll line that up like that, and now I know this is all very well lined up. I'm going to use my fingers to press down on this because I want absolute control over this. I pick that up like that, and then I can squeeze down. Now if you look at that, you can see that that gap is there, and I want to make sure that the barrel cap fits over that and snaps in. So that worked very well. Now you can take your tweezers here and do this, right? Put the tweezers over the top of the barrel and just press down. And just this kind of ensures that the barrel is flat, or the cap is flat all the way through, and it's not going to interfere with an upper plate. I've had that happen before on watches, where I've had the barrel cap was warped a bit, have a hard time getting the barrel cap on, had to flatten it, had to do all kinds of work on the barrel cap, and that was a little bit of a disaster. So I'm going to put a glove on right now. Now one thing I could have done in here is I could have put oil in the mainspring, but it looked like it was in very good shape, so I decided not to oil the top of that mainspring, which is fine. So it should work fine. We'll see how much power it generates. I also wasn't sure whether I needed to replace this mainspring or not. Because it's my watch, I didn't think I wanted to replace the mainspring, but I do want to kind of roll the teeth here to make sure there isn't any leftover stuff in there. I can see one little piece of something. There we go. I got it. And just roll the mainspring along the rodico and have a look at the teeth. As you roll it, and I can see another little piece of something in there. So get rid of that. So anything, any piece of dirt or anything that are in the teeth of this mainspring barrel can cause a bad interface with the center wheel, right, which will reduce the power that the mainspring actually provides to the watch, because all the power from the watch comes from the mainspring and nowhere else. My fingernails are pretty long, but I've been playing pretty good guitar lately. So there's a song called More Than Words. It was a one-hit wonder back in the day. Look it up. It's got some really complex strumming. I may actually do a video on how to play that song because it's tricky as hell. But I figured it out, and they have it almost on autopilot now. Now the next thing is to memorize the lyrics. I'm really shitty at that, but I would actually love to be able to sing that particular song and memorize the lyrics. So I have to make sure that the song is on autopilot for playing it, right? That I don't have to think of what I'm doing. So there we go. That's good there. And I've already oiled where it was necessary to oil on this barrel to make sure everything was fine. So now the barrel, I think I can just put the barrel in right now, like this. I should oil the hole for the barrel arbor so it rolls well. And the other thing I noticed a little tiny piece of something right on the edge. Sometimes even when you put a watch into a cleaning machine, not everything will come out, so you just have to inspect it a bit better after. But this is fairly good. So now I can drop the barrel in like that, and there we go. That's spinning freely, which is what you want, and the oil actually helps make it spin freely like that. So that's pretty good, pretty darn good, I'd say. And while I've got my oiler out, just so I don't forget, I might as well, I'm going to move my camera around a bit just so we get a better view here. So while I got my oiler out, I'm going to put a little bit of oil right here and here, and I don't need any here because that's kind of the opening, and that should help with the stem rotating around, right? So and I got the stem right here, so I can throw that in right now. And when you put a part in the watch, you can move the watch around. So because this movement is what's it called? Oh, it's an Elgin Convertible. I can put the stem either here or here, and I'm trying to remember which one I used. So I'll just throw it in here like this, and you can see how this will help with friction here. So that's where that goes, and then I can start putting the gears and the plates in. So that's that so far. I also took a picture of the gears, so I knew which ones go first, but it looks like it's the escapement wheel goes in, and then the intermediate wheel goes in, and then the fourth wheel goes in, and then probably the center wheel goes in. So that's how the sequence of wheels going in. The other thing I do, often do, is because the pivots on these wheels, the actual shaft will touch the jewel ever so slightly. And if I put a dab of oil on the jewel, flat part of the jewel surface, that helps the flat part of the wheel shaft from it helps lubricate it when it's turning. So that's what I do too. I don't need to do it with this one here, but I'll just. There we go. So that is probably a good policy. And while I've got my oiler out, it's going to be the same situation with the center wheels. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil on both sides here. And then I'll clean that up with Rodico just a bit. So I'll put that down like that, and then take my Rodico and just clean it up just a bit. Leave some of that oil in there. Like that. There we go. So that's good. And for the arbor, the mainspring arbor, I'm going to put a little bit on the top here. And then a little bit on the edge there. And that will spread around nicely. You don't have to over oil anything, right? So there we go. So the wheel configuration, I have to put in the escapement wheel first. Have a look at that, and then make sure it looks good. I can see the world's smallest little hair on that escapement wheel. So because of static electricity, these wheels will attract hair, and it's actually static electricity of a watch that brings the dirt or dust into the movement. It's pretty funny that causes that, but it does. So when you think that your watch is clean, you're like, it's all a contained watch, it's got a dust cover around the movement. How is dirt getting in there? Well, static electricity is bringing the dirt in. That's what's happening. So this gear goes 3 over from here, so it's right there. And this is the escapement wheel. Of course, I got the tweezers stuck in there. I'll grab it from the top here and I put that in. Like so. So the escapement wheel goes in first, and then the fourth wheel, or actually this is 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, the fourth wheel, and that's the wheel with the second hand in it. That goes in next. Or does it? No, it doesn't. So 1, 2, the third wheel goes in next, and it goes in with the pinion up. So it goes in like this. Something's funky about this because the mainspring would be in the way, unless the mainspring rides underneath that wheel. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It looks like it's supposed to go in like this. Yeah, actually the teeth and the mainspring actually go over this wheel. So these teeth here on the mainspring barrel go over the wheel. And then this wheel, which has got the seconds hand, goes in there next. And you got to be very careful with this wheel. You do not want to cause that it's like the pivot, but it's the shaft for the seconds hand to get in trouble at all. So the wheels are all kind of in there. And I'm just lining up the teeth here. So when I put the plate down, I don't have issues. Correct? Correct. I think that's it from a picture perspective. I did take a picture of this here so I know exactly how that's configured, so we'll deal with that after. But I think I can drop the I think I can drop the main plate down here now. Now before I do that, I want to put a bit of oil on the inside. That's going to be tricky as hell to do, but I'd like to see if I can. Actually, I can get my oiler in there, so it's not a problem. So I'm going to put some oil in there. It's been cleaned nicely. I'm going to go in there twice. And I want to clean that up just a bit with Rodico. And I'm looking at the teeth, and I'm looking at the pinion, and I think we're good. I don't believe there's any problems. I do see this very small speck of something on the arm of something right here. Just loosen that and then grab it with the Rodico. There we go. So that is very good right there. Now, just like I did before, and you watchmakers out there can criticize this, but I'm going to put a little tiny bit of oil on the surface of the jewel here. Because that jewel surface does make contact with the shaft. So I apologize for the hands here. I'm holding the edge. So I'll drop this down, and then I have to play with the pivots to get everything in place. This is a bit tricky, but all doable. I think it's going like this, and align one of the holes up here. Kind of like that. There we go. Now I'm going to go off camera and I'll tweak these wheels till they fall in place. And what I use to do that, I'll show you, is I've got, this is from a hobby store, I've got this here with a bit of an angle. It's perfect for getting inside and just moving the wheels around until they all drop. Now what I typically do when I'm doing this is I'll put the screws in here, so I know that I've got the screws in solid, and I can move it sideways and stuff and not worry about everything falling out. But I'll just tweak these pivots so everything comes or falls in place. I guess the other tip I have, so I just did this, didn't take very long, took about a minute. The other tip I have is you can take your finger and put it on the top, and you can control the pressure now on the plate pushing downward, and make sure the biggest gears get in first, and then just slowly, progressively get the next one in and the next one. So in this case, the escapement wheel was the last one to go, and I just kind of looked underneath, but I had control over this by putting my finger on the top. So you can do that to provide some control. So if I look at moving the barrel here, all the gears move. You can see the escapement wheel moving with me moving the barrel. So now I know that this is all in place nicely, and I can grab the screws for this. So make sure I get the right screws here. I think these are the screws here, and place those in. These are nice blued screws, by the way, so they're very nice. I'm using the wrong screwdriver, but this is just kind of not tightening them right now, so I'm okay with that. Okay. In a world, that's the movie guy, right? In a world, one man, this summer, one time only. They don't have the movie guy anymore. He kind of disappeared. Oh, and by the way, like I said, my long form videos are typically watchmaking. Sometimes I do some flight simulator stuff, but mainly they're watchmaking. And because of that, let me just use a Rodico here, but there we go, everything is still free. That's very good. I can tighten this down. I've decided to make my shorts videos comedy videos, and what I did was I take clips from Johnny Carson and some of those older shows, which are really good, some very funny moments, and I use those funny moments, and I make shorts that are like 17 seconds long, so I get quite a lot of viewers from those shorts, so I'm pretty impressed by the amount of audience I've ended up getting from that. And we just push this down here. This little knobby here is the one that pushes up on the spring that has to go in here. So, but I'll put that in after I put the plate in. And I've gotten quite a lot of views, so I've got 82,000 subscribers now to my channel, and I know it's not from watchmaking, but I'd like to think it was, but it's not. So I'd just like to thank everybody for subscribing to my channel and supporting everything I do. So here we go. So this goes in, as you can see, there's two indents here for the either one side or the other for this movement. So this goes in like that, and I have to put the gear then on top after. So I just had to make sure I assemble this bugger properly, right? So that goes on like this, and then you don't screw that down yet because you still have to put the gears in here. So I'm going to have a look at my picture again to make sure I've got it all right. So now I can look at the picture I took here of the top part of this mechanism here to make sure I put this in the right way. It looks like there's a couple of gears that have to go in first. So the gear that, because I've got the stem on this side, I need to put this gear over here. I should put a little tiny bit of oil on that, on the shaft for that, to make sure that, just to make sure it rides nicely on there. And I'm going to get a little bit closer to make sure I didn't screw that up. Yeah, so that's good. I know only need to put it on one side. And yeah, this is clean as a whistle. Clean as a whistle from my cleaning. And then let me just throw that on like that. There we go. So that gear goes there. And then the next gear that goes down, it's kind of a ratchet configuration, is this gear here. And it's like a ratchet wheel. And that goes in on the top like this. And I don't think I need to oil that one at all. It's metal against brass here, so I think there's no problem here with that, like that, without any oil on there. And then I've got a spring that I need to put in place. I'm always reluctant to put these springs in because I'm worried about the breaking the spring and having to buy another Elgin movement just because I broke the spring. But this goes in kind of like this, and this is a spring that presses against the click for the watch. So that's it there, and it's one of two screws, so I'm going to look at these two screws and make sure I pick the right one, that are not they should be exactly the same. If Elgin was smart, they made sure these screws are the same, and I think they are. Yeah, so I can drop one of the screws in here, and I'm going to get this is a Bergeron 7010 stick. Bergeron 7010. I'm trying to explain everything to you guys as I go through this, so it's as informative as possible as a YouTube video. So, and I want to make sure that I've kind of got this secure while I turn this screw. So I turn it backwards ever so slightly to make sure it's got some grip, and then I turn it forward. And that's that there, and see if I've got it tight enough. That's too big a screwdriver, so I'll go down one here. That's too big a screwdriver. So now down another one here. That's perfect. So it's all about Goldilocks. So the other thing I recommend, you see this little screw here? I recommend that you move these out of the way because they'll end up on your hand and then you'll regret the fact that you didn't move it later on because they'll travel somewhere else on your bench. So here's this part here, and this part goes over the on the side. This is just for holding this gear down, holding the gear in place. It goes in like that, kind of like that. And I'm going to use the famous stick again as I slowly get in here and drop that screw in place. And I'm assuming the same screwdriver will work. There we go. I had to make sure that this isn't putting any undue pressure on this gear. So, and it's a little bit sideways, so I'm going to just push that just a bit. Like that, and then tighten it again. Tighten it some more. Oh my God, this thing keeps wanting to go sideways. I need what you call a controlled push. So that's good there. It's clearing these teeth. That's all I wanted to make sure that it's clearing the teeth. I don't have issues there. There we go. So you have to kind of have a lot of power in your hands, but then have a controlled movement. So both. So now I just need to put the click spring back in here. And the click goes like this, and this part tucks underneath the spring here. So if I can tuck that in, life will be good. I'm going to move this back a bit. Alright, I can tell this is going to be fun, so I'm going to get myself another pair of tweezers to do this. I'm going to record my frustrations here as I attempt to put this thing back together again. Thing is, I'm hoping that I can put this in without having to take the click or take this spring off again. No, the plate kind of kicked back up again when I did that. All right, let's try this again. This is going to be tough here. I may have to take this off to do this. I was hoping I wouldn't have to, but you never know. Stuff happens. And this is not screwed down, so I could do this with the plate on the ground as opposed to being put in place. Maybe it'd be easier to do it that way. There we go. I did it. So I turn this sideways to approach it, and then you just move this up a bit. There we go. So that's in place now. Now this tooth here is interfacing or clicking with the click here. So that's that's working well. So that's good. So that configuration is a little tricky, but it's doable. So I've done that, which is good. Now I think I've got to, there's a few more things I need to do. One is I've got to put put this spring back in, but I think I want to wait till I put this back in first, which means I've got to put the wheel down first. This is the wheel here, so I'm going to put a little bit of put a little tiny bit of oil on that wheel. It's a bit of a longer video today, but just bear with me because a beautiful Elgin convertible pocket watch. So, a friend of mine, Sonny, he runs the watchmaking, the amateur watchmakers site on Facebook. And so, if you want to go to the amateur watchmakers site, connect with Sonny. He's a good guy, and he basically he administers the site, and he's very enthusiastic about watchmaking. I met him, I think, a year or two ago, and we clicked. He's a very enthusiastic guy. He's also a father of many kids. So I am a father of many kids, but they're all old now, so now I've got many grandchildren. This is what happens. They just kind of show up. It's kind of funny. I don't have to do anything. They just show up. I just rolled the Rodico on the teeth here to make sure I have something there. I think I just have to put this down like this. And there we go. So now this gear is interfacing with this wheel here for winding, but when I want to set the watch, this would have to go up to set the watch. So I just have to just make sure everything is kind of working properly. And this plate goes on top. I think this is how it goes, but I do need to put this in. So should I put this in first? Let me look here. This goes in like that. And what happens is when this little post I talked to you about earlier, this pushes up, which lifts this wheel up. That's how all that works. I want to just take some Rodico and move that along this just a bit, clean that up just a bit. I did not put this through the wash machine. Always concerned with the wash machine with super delicate, unique parts. And I know if I break this, I can't get another one. So this is a one-off. So you got to be very aware of that when you're doing repair on watches, and especially if you're repairing somebody else's watch. They want you to take utmost care in repairing their movement because it's likely a family heirloom of some sort, and it was their great-great-grandfather's pocket watch, and he was fighting at the OK Corral against Wyatt Earp, and that was important because Wyatt Earp won that. So, but that pocket watch saved his life. It's like that old Clint Eastwood movie, Blood for a Silver Dollar. Give me a comment if you remember that movie. In that movie, the silver dollar that Clint Eastwood had in his pocket saved his life when the guy tried to shoot him. So that's Blood for a Silver Dollar. So that's pretty cool. Now this lever down here, when I push that, should move this up. So let me just do a quick impromptu test on that and see if I've got some good functioning there. can see that escapement wheel really wanting to move, eh? So let me just pull this up a bit and see what happens. Yeah, it is pushing that upward, which is good, but I think I've got to have the plate down on that. But I can see it moving this up, which is what you want for setting the watch. But it has to actually move this up to interface with this gear here for time setting. Oh, there it is. I can see it moving. You see that? See it going up there? So there we go. So it does work. And I'm sure when I wind this watch, there'll be more. That's the shaft on the bottom pushing up on this spring, which is pushing this arm up, which is pushing the wheel up. Interesting design. So my theory is that as I think I said to Sonny or something, that the engineers were bored shitless that week and said, hey, and management came down and said, I'm really sick of making all these different cases for these movements. Is there any chance you can make a movement that will work in both hunter and non-hunter positions, so I can sell these watches and not spend so much money on the cases? And the engineer said, yeah, we could probably do that. And back then they had chalkboards, not whiteboards. So they got in there with their chalkboards and they started jamming on the chalkboard. So I'm an old engineer, and I've done that before, where I've taken on a challenge and had to basically jam on a whiteboard for a couple of days till we figured out what to do. And engineers love doing that, by the way, because that's why you go into engineering. You go into engineering because you love the challenge of problem solving. And if you're a good engineer, you're able to break the problem down into components and then solve it. If you're a bad engineer, you're either watching everybody else solve the problems or you're unable to break it into components and solve it. There we go. Those are tight, but not so tight that the world's going to end. I'm going to put a little bit of oil here. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil on the other side. I know there's people out there that tell me to stop babbling while I'm working. But I'm a maritimer from Canada, and we talk. That's our claim to fame, is our ability to talk. So I do well alone in prison. I just talk to myself. So I'm oiling the top of this shaft as well, just to allow that to spread. And I'm not going to clean that up with Rodico now. I'm just going to allow that to spread. And then I'm going to, while I'm here, and so I don't forget, I'm going to oil these pivots as well. I'm using the HP 1300 until I get to the escapement. So that's good there, so that's done. And now the assumption now is that let's just reconfigure this just a bit. When I turn this here with the key, of course you have to have a key unless you have a movement, that this will wind the watch just a bit. And there we go. So I'm running the train there. Now there's no need, what you can do when you do this is that you can put see how nicely it's running down? So it's running down very smoothly, which is nice. You want it to do that. You can still see it just moving ever so slightly. That's a beautiful movement. So you can put your thumb on the center wheel, wind it again just a bit, and then let that go. And I can see all the wheels moving in there. Just a thing of beauty. And it looks like it's slowing down nicely. It's not jittering. So that is exactly what you want. You can see that, right? can see the escapement wheels just starting to do its final turns. The center wheel still moving ever so slightly, and you can see it's just nothing left. So that is exactly what you want. So that's that. So let me see what's next. So I need to clean the pallet fork. Right now the pallet fork is a friggin' mess. And I'm going to throw it into this jar here, and I'm going to fill that up with lighter fluid and use a brush to clean that off. I might as well show you the process here, but I don't like putting the pallet fork into the cleaning machine, so I'd rather use a bit of lighter fluid here and fill that up. And I have a piece of faux leather on the bottom there, so I have to use a little more lighter fluid than normal, but that faux leather protects the pivots from getting any kind of distortion or the pivots actually from damage. So once I get it in there like this, I can now grab the pallet fork with a pair of tweezers and use a light brush to brush away any dirt. Now the good thing here is that lighter fluid does not cause shellac to dissolve. So the stones are put in here with shellac, and if it did cause a problem, then you wouldn't be able to use lighter fluid to clean anything with this. So back in the day, that's exactly what they used to clean watches. They use lighter fluid, which is kind of like, it's basically naphtha. And years ago I cleaned a clock with naphtha. Like, I cleaned your clock. I cleaned a clock with naphtha, and it turned out it works so well. And I'm not a clock guy, although I probably could be a clock guy. But I'm not a clock guy. So I know up here, I live in Ottawa, Canada, and I know up in Ottawa, Canada, I'm a member of the Ottawa Valley Watch and Clock Collectors Society. Was basically a lot of clock guys, a few pocket watch guys, and a very few watch guys. But the clock guys keep telling me, you could be a clock guy, JD. You could be a clock guy. I'm thinking, the thing is, I don't want to be a clock guy because I don't have space to be a clock guy. You need to have a lot of room to maintain clocks, because it just takes a lot of space. Let me get some watchmaker's paper out here, and I probably want to put something down underneath that. I'll put this little plastic bag underneath because I don't want to ruin my mat. But you could be, I could fix clocks if I wanted to. I might be able to do carriage clocks if I extend myself to carriage clocks, because I have a very beautiful carriage clock, and I did clean the carriage clock. I didn't need to repair it, but I did clean it. So there's my leftover lighter fluid, which I think I'll use. I'll throw that in the dunker tank and use that for cleaning the balance wheel and the hairspring. But I need to get a blower out here, to one of these, just to blow off the lighter fluid from this part. So I can hold it from the back like that. That stuff evaporates so fast. That's the value, or the good thing about the lighter fluid. So you can't even see it on the paper anymore. It's all gone. It's evaporated. So that's that. And now I can install the pallet fork in there. And I do like to put, for the pallet fork, this is Mobius 9415. I wrote it on the side because it was starting to disappear. It's kind of like a gel. And I like to put that on the tips of the actual jewels for the pallet fork, because they reduce the amount of friction between the pallet fork and the escape wheel teeth. And so this stuff is gold, Jerry. It's gold. So I'm going to put some of that on there. Now to get some control over the pallet fork, I'm just going to place this pallet fork on the Rodico. Push it down a bit, and that gives me a little bit of control on the so it doesn't move around. And take a very little bit of this gelled material and put it on the face of the jewel. Just like that. So you don't need too much of it, but it does work well, folks. So get yourself a bottle of 9415. I'm not sure how much it costs, but it's like a gel. So you need to get some of that or you're a loser. So hopefully you're not taking me seriously today. So now I've got to put the pallet fork back in, and I think, trying to remember which way it goes, I think it goes with the safety pin facing upward. It has to face upward, otherwise it won't do anything. I'm thinking anyway. Yeah, this is a funky looking pallet fork too. If you look at that, if I had to replace that would be fun to find a pallet fork like that. So that would go in like this. I think I'm good there. I'm not sure. No, it's got to go around, and it's got to clear the banking pins. It's very tricky, this pallet fork, to put in. Oh, there we go. That, I think, is perfect. That's in place now, and now I've got the bridge, or it's not a bridge, it's a cock for the pallet fork, and they call it that because it only has one screw and it goes in the other way. It's funny how they serialize the serial numbers on the thing. It's really nicely decorated, which is nice. It's a good add-on for it, right? So the screw is on one side, and then it goes in like that. There we go. Now as I look down on this, I can see the pivot is not sticking. Where is it? No, it's not sticking through the hole. So you got to make sure that that pivot is in place. There we go. So it just fell in, and I can see the top of the pivot, which is what you want, again. And now I've got to put the screw in here, but I'm going to use the stick again to hold everything in place. So it probably could have been a bit closer with my camera here. I apologize, but too bad. That's how you lose customers. So it's a little tricky doing work on a watch while you're talking. I've said this a few times, but it honestly is tricky because you're trying to concentrate, and if you're discussing things, then you lose that concentration. But before I put pressure on here, I want to make sure the base of where this caulk is touching the plate has got no gaps, so I know the thing is all the way down, and I can see the pivot coming through on the top of the pallet fork. And I'll hold that down like that, and now I can tighten that with knowing very well that there's going to be no issue here. And now when I put a little bit of a wind on this, the pallet fork, let's just wind this up just a bit here. The pallet fork should snap back and forth appropriately. I put a bit of a wind on there, and I'll just touch, I'll use the probe here, and I'm just going to move this and see if it goes back and forth. Yes, it does. That's perfect. I don't think I need to adjust the banking pins on this watch, right? So that's not going to be an issue, which is great. And so now I'm going to work on the balance, so I can get the balance cleaned up and put back in again. So here's the balance for this very vintage old Elgin Convertible Pocket watch, and the first thing I want to do is just relieve the stud from the balance, because I want to be able to take the I want to submerge the hairspring and everything inside inside some lighter fluid. So I just loosen that screw that holds the stud in. Could probably move my camera over for a bit better of a view of this work. So there it is there. So I just loosen this screw right here, and I think if I just poke the stud out like that, then I've got the balance sitting there nicely. So now I'm going to submerge the complete balance in lighter fluid and then agitate it so I get that hairspring nicely cleaned up. The other thing I noticed is that the hairspring was not riding between the banking pins on this balance, and the banking pins seem to be too tight. They seem to be together too much. As you can see, look, they're pinching there. So that has to be adjusted, and you can easily adjust the banking pins with a screwdriver. You just need to take your screwdriver like this and very carefully stick it in the base here, and then rotate just a bit. And that can usually adjust the banking pin that way. I may have to get a smaller screwdriver. One thing I don't want to do is bust it, so we'll figure that out in a few minutes. But I do need to actually unscrew the top here and to service this particular jewel, right? I want to be able to service this, and when I put this down, I want to make sure the banking pins are free. They're not going to be bent by me working on this. So I'll just basically take these screws out and remove the I could do it right now while you're watching, I guess, but in the meantime I should throw this balance into some lighter fluid. So here it is, the Binford 4000 dunker tank that I invented. So this is, some people have told me it's a pretty cool invention. So typically you put the balance cock on the top here, and then the balance, so like that, and then the balance just rests down below and you can clean it. But in this case I really wanted to take the balance off and submerge the balance, the complete balance, into the dunker tank to allow for this to soak in lighter fluid. So I want this to soak in lighter fluid, which means I got to fill this up almost to the top. So hopefully I have enough lighter fluid. If I flip this upside down, actually it's going to cover that better, I think. Yeah, if I flip it the other way, flip it like this, it's a lot lower, which is going to cover it a lot better. So I'm just going to spill that lighter fluid in here from the last thing I did, and then I'm going to grab my can of lighter fluid, and it's getting low, so I don't think I'm going to run out because I think I have another can up top. So this is the Zippo stuff is the stuff I really like. So me and the Zippo company should be sending me free lighter fluid. There we go. So that's filled up in the dunker tank, and then I use an air puffer later on to agitate this. But I want to cover the mat a bit because when you're doing this, it tends to spread the lighter fluid around. So I'll let this sit for a while I service the balance cock here and take the jewel out, clean the jewels, and I'll need a little bit of lighter fluid for that as well, I think. So to do that, what I want to do, and just make sure nothing gets squished, I want to remove these 2 screws here. These buggers are in tight because this watch likely has never been serviced. It's long life. The other thing I like to do is make sure the screws are lined up. So when I put it back, the correct screw is going back in the same hole it came out of. And the reason for that is that sometimes these screw holes are slightly different because of the watchmaker. If it's direct from factory, they should be exactly the same. So, but if it's not, and I just line the screws up like this, when I put it back, I have no issue. Now, in some cases, I can actually get the cap out without having to. I think this is doable in this particular movement here. As I move this screwdriver in here and rotate it, it seems to be lifting it out nicely. I often will look for scribe lines or witness lines on there. Let me get another screwdriver, smaller one, and maybe I can get underneath here. There we go. And there it is. Now, if I can remember that there's a black mark and it's on the top. So I'll use that as my reference mark. But now I can poke in here. Looks like a very interesting jewel setting in there. But one that looks like it's in very good condition actually. But I can actually use some lighter fluid from the balance here because I got plenty of lighter fluid in there. And I can basically get my very small paintbrush here and clean out that balance, the upper jewel for the balance. Get it from both sides. It looks very clean anyway. I'm not as concerned with this. Get some oil off of this. That looks really good. And I'll see if I actually need to peg the hole out. I might not need to peg the hole. So I'll just lay that down now. And then the jewel itself, I think I can grab that. This is the cap jewel setting. And that side doesn't matter, so I just flip that around like that. Dip the brush in there again. And I'm going to want to take a piece of pegwood and just rub that along the jewel surface so that it gets any crud off of that jewel. Of course, everything kind of flicks away fast, eh? Let me look at what that looks like. That looks pretty darn good right there. I'm just going to rub it again just a bit. Again, this is a bit long of a video, but this is exactly what you do when you're reassembling a pocket watch. Yeah, that looks pretty good there. So now I just have to let these pieces dry. Again, I can speed up the process by using my puffer, which will make the lighter fluid evaporate in seconds. Like that. Put that out of the way. Grab this and look inside, and yeah, there's still lighter fluid in there, but I can puff at that. One thing when you're using a puffer, make sure you don't point at other stuff on your mat so that you puff away small screws or springs or anything you really needed. If you do that, you're on your hands and knees hunting for parts again, right? So, biddling, that's the biddling warning, I think. Yeah, that jewel hole looks really good. No problems there at all. So these components can be put together again. I need to put a very small dab of 9010 oil on that now, on the actual jewel. Now, you should put it on the cap jewel and then move the cap jewel into place. That sometimes can be very tricky. I'm going to see if I remember which side of the cap jewel goes on which side. Yeah, there it is. So there's a little mark on the top. So the cap jewel actually goes with the mark facing upward. So if I grab it like this, rotate it, grab myself some 9010, I'm reaching around the camera here to grab the 9010, put the 9010 oil on the jewel like that. That's all you need. Rotate that around, and you really need to learn how to rotate a screwdriver without dropping the part. We go to the end hole here. There we go. That fell in nicely. And now, just like I said before, I've got those two screws that are there that I need to put back in. All right. And I put them in the right order here, so I would be able to put them back in the same holes. Kind of almost have to hold your breath when you're doing this. So if anybody has done target shooting or whatever, I did when I was in the Army. And as a kid, I guess. You kind of got to concentrate. You let all the air out, and then you hold for a few seconds. So you don't breathe in, and then hold. You breathe out, and then hold. And then everything steadies up. There we go. So that's done and oiled and ready. So now all I need to do is agitate this mainspring, or this hairspring basically, and I just need to do that with the puffer. So I'm going to go step outside and do that. That way any splashes don't get on the mat here. So I'll be right back with a cleaner mainspring, or a cleaner balance. All right, so I went outside and I agitated the crap out of this, And now I can very carefully take this out, turn it around, and stretch it. Stretch it meaning I'm just going to, I have a piece of plastic underneath here. Just grab the hairspring stud like that, and then what I want to do here is just very lightly blow on the hairspring and balance to evaporate the lighter fluid. It shouldn't take very long to do that. But it needs to be completely evaporated before you put the movement, before you put the balance, hairspring and stud back on the balance cock. So that may be dried. I'm also going to look at the coils on the hairspring to make sure they're uniform. I think they are. They're looking actually really good. So there's no problem there at all. You can kind of see that there. And there's the leftover lighter fluid. It's a shame I don't have anything more to clean with that. Maybe I can just jump in myself, go for a lighter fluid bath. So there we go, that's it. This is probably one of the more comprehensive videos I've made on doing this. One thing I could do is just throw my screw in here. I'll throw the screw in there for, that's the screw for the balance. So what I want to do now is reassemble the balance. And I don't need to show that, but I usually do that under a microscope. Look at the pivots here, and they're actually looking really good. There's no problems at all with the pivots. Yeah, they're looking really good. And I'll also take a piece of Rodico, which I always do, and just poke the pivot on the top just to make sure there's nothing left over. And then the pivot on the bottom. I can actually see a little bit of lighter fluid left over in the bottom because I was puffing the top. Let me just puff the bottom here, and that'll get rid of that lighter fluid. And that will not affect the impulse jewel as well. So that should be fine. And the bottom arms of the balance here say 606 and 532, so I'm not sure what that means. Means something. And we'll just I'll reassemble this balance now with the with this, and then move on from there. Usually I need to really concentrate when I'm doing that. The other thing I need to do though is get that hairspring in between the arms here. I think this is a bit too narrow, so I'm just going to see if I can widen that. So I did widen it just a bit. I just took my screwdriver, I put it in closer to this thing, and then rotated ever so slightly, and that widened that the gap just a bit. It was way too tight. So there we go. That should help. And the actual hairspring was not inside of the regulator pins. It was on the other side of the regulator pins. So I'm going to reassemble the balance and get ready for the ultimate test of the watch, putting it back together again. And just before I do the reassembly here of the balance complete, I already oiled underneath this cap. I want to oil underneath. I want to oil these jewels as well. Even though I did oil them from the other side before, I want to oil them appropriately. Now there's a right amount of oil and there's a wrong amount of oil. And if you put in too much oil, then it just doesn't work. Somebody is dinging me. I think we're good there. And where's the mainspring? The mainspring is right here, the barrel. So I want to put a little bit of oil on the back end of this too. And I'll clean it up a bit with Rodico. Let that soak in a bit. Oh my God, right? So all right, so that's that. And I'm going to actually poke the pivot. I want to poke the pivot here for the fourth wheel here. So I put way too much oil in there, and I'm going to just do a little bit right there. I intentionally put too much oil in there, so that's fine. That's fine, that looks good, everything looks good. So that's all good. So let me turn that around. And it's ready to receive the balance. I just need to get the balance together again. So we'll do that and I'll be right back. There you go, get the balance back together. That was actually pretty easy. I just laid it flat like that under a microscope and then dropped it down, made sure that the stud was lined up properly, and made sure that the balance, the hairspring was between the regulator pins. One thing I didn't do yet that I should do is put the cannon pinion back in, and I think I can lay that flat, either or. If I lay it flat, I want to lay it onto a nice pad, a gel pad, because that will conform to the gears on the top there, so I won't have any problems. And the cannon pinion should just drop straight in, so I shouldn't have a problem at all with this. Let me have a look at this. Yeah, this will snap, I think, when it goes into place. And I just heard the snap. So there we go. So now the cannon pinion's in place, which means I can put the gear and the face in there. But now I've got to put the balance back into the movement. So I want to align that. So I already put a bit of a wind on the movement, which is good. Just make sure I put a couple more turns like that. And I'm hoping for some ticking when this thing is put in. So I'll just do this. I got to cramp it onto the Myers number 15 movement holder in this position here. And the reason why is that the stem would be in the way if it's not like this. So I'd have to use a different movement holder because the stem's sticking out of the side there. So let's see if I can do this. So the first thing I want to make sure is that the pallet fork is facing the inside. And there's a reason for that, and that's when you bring the bounce cock in, you want to make sure that it's that the impulse jewel feeds into the mouth of the pallet fork properly, right? So there's the balance there, and I think I can grab it underneath like this. This always worries me, by the way. As part of the job, I talked to another watchmaker the other day, and he said, yeah, this is the part that makes him nervous as well. So I just steady this down a bit like this. I have to come in at an angle like that to make sure that the impulse jewel feeds into the mouth of the pallet fork properly. So I do this and then rotate this around like that and place it down. It's a bit of an art. It doesn't work every time. Let me just see if I can get that out of the way. And now I'm not sure for this particular movement where the studs are on the bottom. Oh, there they are. They just kind of fell into place. And look at that. Started ticking right away. So that is excellent. That is really good. Now I put the screw for this balance in here. So there it is there. So I can just take this screw and then puff the lighter fluid out of it, and I want to be in control of where that screw, or how that screw goes in. I don't want the balance to actually move as I'm putting the screw in. So I'm going to use my Bergeron stick again. I keep saying Bergeron, but because I used to know a guy, his last name is Bergeron, but it's a Bergeron. It's a Swiss company. They make great tools. I am half Swiss from my mother's side, so and I do have a lot of watchmakers in my family, in my heritage. So what I want to do here is just hold this in place. While I put the screw in. When in doubt, do it again. The other thing I need to do with this watch is demagnetize it. So let me grab what I think is the right screwdriver. Tighten that down, and there we go. So the movement is together. So I still have to put the face and hands back on, but I'm not too concerned with that. I've done that on video a million times. The main thing was to actually get this movement running again. I don't actually think it was running before. So it's going to work itself in. I let this run for at least a day before I put the face back on, so I can make sure that everything is running perfectly. I've got the second hand, the minute wheel is fine, and the hour wheel is fine. They've all been cleaned up, and the hands are fine. Everything is cool. So, but I'll let this run for a full day to make sure there's no issues at all with this particular movement, right? So, and then and I want to make sure that the time setting mechanism works. And I showed you earlier how you pull up on that wheel, and then see how that wheel kind of goes up, and then it interfaces with with this here. So as you turn the stem, you end up interfacing the wheel with the upper wheel, and that's for setting the time. So that works really well. So no problem there at all. So that, I think, is it. I think that is it. So I'll just get a little bit of a close-up here, like that, and turn this around so it's readable, legible. The words are legible, like this, and I'll smile for the video. And that's it. So I'm JD. So thanks for watching this video. This is a complete assembly and oiling, servicing of a Elgin Convertible Pocket watch from the late 1800s. It's a beautiful piece. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them. I still have to regulate it and maybe have to deal with the bead error and other things, but we'll do that after. But it's running, which is a real plus, and it's a beautiful movement. So thanks for watching my videos. If you want me to do any watch work, you can get a hold of me at jdwatchservice@gmail.com, jdwatchservice@gmail.com. So just contact me at that email address, or send me a note on the YouTube video, but I'd rather you send me an email, jdwatchservice@gmail.com. It's at the end of the video here, for doing any work on your precious movements that you have. I love doing work on family heirlooms specifically. Not too keen on doing work for people that want to buy a movement, have it clean, and sell it again. Not keen on that. I do this as a hobby, but I've been doing it for many, many years. So thanks a lot for watching this. I hope you learned something from this video. If you've got any suggestions or comments on what I should be doing when I reassemble and clean a watch, you can go ahead and give me the comments. I learn from everybody. So thanks a lot. And again, I'm JD, and I provide watch servicing, and I make a lot of videos. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.